So welcome to week 6 of our Introduction to Medical Software class. In this week's segments, we're going to talk about user needs and the system requirement specification. These are the first 2 steps in the medical software lifecycle. So the goals of this week's lectures is precisely to discuss user needs and the process of how we go about identifying them, how we go about writing a system's requirements and coming up with what they should be. And we're going to show examples for our project, the image-guided neurosurgery project, of both the user needs process and the systems requirements process. There are 6 segments this week. The first 2 we'll discuss about how we go about identifying user needs. Then we'll talk about user needs for a specific image-guided neurosurgery example project. Then we'll talk about the systems requirement specification. We'll give you a template for that, one that I developed for my teaching needs. And then in the last segment, we'll talk about the systems requirement specification for our image-guided neurosurgery project. This week's materials is based on chapters 11 and 12 of the textbook, and we'll keep returning to the book as we go through. So in this and the next segment, we're going to talk about the process of identifying user needs. While there are structured processes here that people use, and there are people who are business analysts, sometimes have guidelines and checklists, a lot of this is in fact experience. You just learn by doing. And so a lot of the material you'll see in the next few slides are checklists, things to do, things to not forget. And these are from my own experience and the experience of my colleagues who I talked to as I was preparing this class. So this is the V model. We've met it in week 1, and we're going to use this over the next few weeks as we go through the process. We're in step 2 here. We're in the use cases. We're going to visit our users and figure out what is it that they need. This is our task, and this is a definition I came up with over the years of teaching. Our goal is to translate the often vague and amorphous user wishes to a plan of action that can result in a successful and robust software product that integrates into the user's environment and allows her to accomplish the task that she needs to do. So that's my definition of what the goal of user needs are. And when you talk to your users, this is the problem we deal with often. Their needs are amorphous, they're vague. I need something that lets me do this. But your job as an engineer here, as a designer, is to take those somewhat vague statements and make them into concrete, detailed specifications that allow you to create software. Computers need details. There's no software project, there's no computer program that takes vague instructions. You have to get it down to a set of rules effectively that will let you proceed. So many people are not used to operating at this level of detail. They tell you what they need, but our job as software engineers is to get from that vague statement of this, I wish I had something that let me do this, to a very detailed flowchart almost set of rules that let us create software. So we have some regulatory constraints here, as always, and as you proceed with your discussion with your users to identify what they need, you should ask and keep in mind how one would demonstrate efficacy, that our software achieves its intended uses, safety, that we do not cause harm to the patient or to the caregiver as part of using our software, and security, that our software cannot be abused for malicious purposes. Think about cybersecurity here. And we also have to be mindful of data privacy issues if they are applicable, depending on what exactly our software is doing. In all design, and this applies to software design and identifying user needs, we always have this tension between what and how. So what is the abstract, the actual objective of the user. So if we go back to the lawn example, the objective of the user, they would like to keep their grass short. The how, the concrete, is the method used to accomplish this. We use a lawnmower to mow the lawn. And we have to operate on both of these planes. What, at the abstract plane, is where we understand what needs to happen, and how, the concrete plane, is where we actually do it. At the end of the day, we have to have a lawnmower or some piece of equipment or a drag or a piece of tool or something that will actually be applied to the situation. And this leads to a discussion of what's called the brown cow model. This comes from a book called Mastering the Requirements Process from Robertson and Robertson. You can see the cover on the top left of the slide. And this has this model illustrates well the tension between the how and the what. So at the bottom, we start with how now, the model of the current situation. What is the user actually doing right now, concretely? And we move up to a more abstract level. What now? the essential business issue. What are they actually trying to do as opposed to what are they doing? So this line here, think about this horizontal line, it divides between the concrete, the real world, and the abstract, the world of ideas and designs, if you wish, and we go from how to what. So the process starts how. I log in, and my user is using a lawnmower, but what are they trying to do? They're trying to keep their grass short. And then we often, and this is the Brown co-model, ask the next question, what future? What is the enhanced business? What else would my user would like to be able to do? Not only what they're doing now, maybe that's enough, can I get them to do what they're doing now better, but they will often have additional wishes. And then we return down to the real world. How future? What is the product, use case scenarios? How is the product going to be designed to implement this new idea, this new functionality? And there is this tension. Your users often live in the abstract world. They tell you what they need. You have to worry as a software engineer about the concrete world. And so this interplay between the abstract and the concrete is a fundamental challenge. So this is the routine. We go from how to what to how. The first step in the process of any kind of medical software project is to understand the problem area. You have to learn something about the clinical problem and the current approaches to solving it, something about the disease, the anatomy and the physiology of the disease, something about the current procedures for diagnosis, treatment, or whatever it is you're trying to do. So let's say you're developing software to do cancer screening from mammography to automatically analyze mammography images that are used to screen women for breast cancer. You want to know something about the disease, it's breast cancer, how it manifests itself, and what are the current procedures for the task you're trying to do. Well, currently they acquire the mammogram this way, and they run it through this piece of software, it gives them some measurements, and based on that they make some decisions. You want to understand the how now, effectively. And then from that to abstract it out to understand why they're doing what they're doing. The second part of the process is that you want to know something about the patients. What is their age? What is their sex? Do they have obesity or other issues? Are there other diseases that are involved? Because this will help you understand a little bit about how your software will be used. So you want to understand a little bit about the problem area. That's usually step one. And the other thing, as we've ended this section, and we'll pick up the story in the next segment, is you want to learn a little bit about working with clinicians. So you have to establish common language. And you as a technical person, you need to acquire some key vocabulary about the disease. And both you and your clinical partner will need to cross over, but in practice you will not meet in the middle, but closer to the clinical side. So if this is the medical world and this is the software world and this is the midline, you're going to meet somewhere here, closer to the clinical world than to the software world. So you as a technical person will have to learn more about what they do than they will learn about what you do. If you find a physician that wants to know a lot of details about what you do, that may end up being a very valuable collaborator. Those people are rare. The other thing to keep in mind, and we'll return to this in the next segment as well, is that remember that physicians, to put it sensitively, are often headstrong characters, right? They operate in a medical environment. They're used to telling people what to do and to be obeyed. And they have a very strong sense of what needs to happen because that's what they need to be able to do. They need to tell people how to take difficult decisions and make adjustments to their lives in order to overcome some medical problem. So you have to keep that in mind and not confuse that with an instruction to you. You have to sort of separate out what they know and what they don't know, and to listen to them in those aspects of that they're good at, and to learn to ignore a little bit when they get you into technical details where they don't necessarily have the expertise, but they're still used to speaking with that authoritative voice. So that concludes this first segment on user needs. We'll continue discussion with more checklists and more advice in the next segment.